Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to RLAfterShock, the longest-running independent podcast for everything that's Rocket League Esports in the European scene. We don't want to do this episode today. I'm not sure if you're aware of all the goings-on right now, but yeah. Oh man, I'm the Eternal Joe. Joining me is Digital Bacon. We don't want to be here right now. We really don't want to be here at the moment.
It's been a hard week, Jay, ain't it? Like, the main story, of course, everyone should already know this is going to be about Triple Trouble, and this is more like a cleanup, a whole roundup. No adding massive fuel to the fire, just an explanation of how things run down for those that maybe
I'll do my best, but you know.
Oh, you're going to go on the wrong because you're a little bitch, but we already accept that and realise it's going to happen. But essentially, yeah, it's got to be a roundup because, of course, you've got to look at both sides and then try and come to a conclusion without just, say, some people get misinformed only following one thing and not the other. You know, Jay?
Yeah, well, we are still going to make this a wholesome show for the most part. It's not just about Triple Trouble today. We're also going to be discussing the recent roster moves, including the NRG move that picked up Turbopolsa earlier on during the week, which we thought was going to be the focus of our show until everything fell out. Obviously, some more details being revealed about the Beyond Summit event, including the casting talent and, of course, the teams that were supposedly involved. And we'll also be doing some tournament recaps on the Rival Summer Open that went by this past weekend. But we're going to start and get the BS out of the way to begin. Obviously, for those of you who might not be aware, which I'm going to assume is two of you at this point of listening, Triple Trouble are no more. They officially released a statement just a couple days ago stating that they are done, essentially. It began with a tweet, Bacon. It began with a tweet. The roster was going to change. The Ronicky had left the whole thing. And just like everything kind of fell apart from there, essentially. Big time shit flinging and levels of hell raised in the Rocket League scene, that of which we've never seen before. We're going to start the show by kind of running through all the details, to explain a few things, to give a few details about everything going on, then before giving our own opinions, because we know there's a lot of misinformation out there. The last thing that we want to do is start, publishing shit that isn't true, essentially. So we'll start with part one. Obviously, Ronicky leaving the roster. Kind of sacrilege almost, because he was like the only remaining member from the roster, essentially, that began Triple Trouble at the start of it, Bacon.
Yeah, so Ronicky leaving Triple Trouble was the whole catalyst, and what we just got originally was the whole, he's going to be out of this, and then the second scenario, Jay, essentially, of Tadpole coming out with the explanation of this roster change, because it was a quick out of the blue, even for Tadpole, those two, everyone knew straight from after DreamHack Valencia that they're going to be trying out new third players. Casio was sort of like put to the side, and it was always that case of, and this was a little bit confusing of how it will run, because again, when you look back to the Reddit posts, when they're bringing in Ignite, signed up with tournaments, it was like, okay, Casio's not kicked off the team, we're just trying out new players. We don't find someone that fits better, Casio's still on board. But naturally, everyone saw Casio trying out with other squads, so it was a very confusing scenario for there. But this Ronicky leaving Triple Trouble was just, for everyone else, completely out of the blue and not expected at all, really, was it?
No, and it led to a big sort of fallout, essentially. What happened was, following this particular announcement, there was a talk of a statement going to be released about the whole situation, and lo and behold, Tadpole comes out with a nice big twit longer, which I'm sure most of you have read at this point, but for those of you who haven't, again, we'll just give you the footnotes. He's basically gone over the whole history of the recent history of Triple Trouble, everything from the speed move straight up to the Bon Day, essentially. So he starts by talking about a lot of the issues with the Ronicky roster move. Obviously, that's what we're going to be focusing on. Mostly about how it was initially sort of like, initially it was a little bit of contact established about the idea of him going to go try out for new teams. And it started off there, then one thing led to another. It was a severe lack of communication that kind of led to eventually just the bombshell being dropped on them at that one day. According to the twit longer, there was basically like just a paragraph of leave from Ronicky that basically gave the whole news prior to the announcement, privately in DMs. Obviously, this has not been leaked to the public, but there was one particular statement where he said he can't remember the time that he actually got some actual credit, and Tadpole was really disappointed in this particular aspect. He took it kind of personally, the idea that Ronicky didn't feel like he got any credit essentially, and obviously the idea that he would be going to a different team. Tadpole did state, however, that he would have taken the deal given everything. So the tweet longer basically ends with a bunch of personal statements from Tad and Base. We're going to break this down bit by bit. Essentially just saying, look, we were your biggest supporters. We're kind of disappointed with everything that happened. We think that we probably should have deserved better. And then he drops a bit of a bombshell about everything in regards to the Triple Trouble situation. He states that Ronicky owes him money from the play, which for those of you who don't know was a big, not a big Rocket Baguette, but a relatively decently sized Rocket Baguette tournament from a little over a year ago now. And also he owed him for money for the apartment in Valencia, which of course they went to for DreamHack. So, from this statement alone, Bacon, let's talk about this in isolation, because when it hit, a lot of heads started turning initially.
Yeah, so this from Tadpole was actually written up quite well, and it was a lot of understanding. It near enough broke down the whole history and where everything was going, and near enough stating that it all started to spin from Speed leaving Triple Trouble, which was quite understanding. And all of that, because naturally it was a last second decision, but the guys all knew the problem was that it just sort of came down to Speed leaving last minute, because that's a real hard decision. For me, I like this from Tadpole because this, even though again we think it shouldn't have been made public, this tweet anyway at this point in time, it was very understanding. It's that point of, you can see from him that it's just coming down to, he doesn't blame the decision of leaving for, I mean, it's not announced yet, but everyone knows it's going to be FCB, isn't it, essentially? He doesn't blame him for that. It's just the way that it was all conducted, and it almost feels like a stab in the back, because if he was open about it and honest, then Tadpole would have been more understanding, and you can see why. He even could have got to the point, if this had happened earlier, where Tadpole could have talked to Casio before Casio signed his contract, coming up with, well, it's already signed in that for Veloce, and hence why it's all happened afterwards. Casio's already signed that contract, so he can't come back to the TT side, and it just all feels a bit really horrible. And like, when you look at this team and the community behind it, where they're all a good bunch of friends, you've got a great community supporting them, and then it all sort of dissolves in this manner, it is so bitter and sour.
Yes, and it's especially, is bitter and sour considering that everything kind of crumbled in really bad blood. Case in point, part 3. Obviously, when you have a twit longer, there's obviously the opportunity for another for the player in question to come out with a follow-up twit longer. And Ronicky did come out with his statement. Obviously, a lot of it trying to refute the idea, some of the claims that Tadpole had also made, and bring some other claims to light in regards to the whole situation. The main crux of his twit longer was essentially that he was kept in the dark about a lot of issues in regards to the team. He was kept in the dark about the Speed move up until the very last second, where he was only made aware of it once Speed had gone to Flipside. He would also had issues with trying to talk to Tadpole and Base, according to his particular account. He had issues trying to talk to them about issues within the team, because allegedly, because they were friends. Again, I'm not sure how true this really is. There's very little information about this particular regard. But because they were friends, they would shut down Ronicky because of because of the connection that they had there. He also tries to back this up by linking to some screenshots with Rams, who I believe was the coach at the time, if I recall correctly. I remember him being involved in Triple Trouble at one point. But a lot of these. A lot of these screenshots essentially trying to be used to summarize Ronicky's mental state at that time. Interestingly enough, about this particular part is that Rams actually come out and demonized Ronicky for this. He actually quote tweeted the tweet saying that it's very strange to use screenshots. It's very strange to use screenshots from his conversations when he left, he made out not to care about him. which it kind of lines up with a lot of the stuff that people have been saying about Ronicky over the past couple of days, especially in regards to this issue. A lot of people have demonized Ronicky about this whole statement. A lot of people have called him out and said, you don't actually address many of the issues that Tadpole had discussed. Especially, most importantly, was that was that money issue thing. So, what do we make of this whole situation? Because I'm saving all my opinions, by the way, till the very end of this, by the way, because I know people like to hear me run. So I'm just gonna summarize. So I'm just gonna do it all in one big foul swoop. So Bacon, about what's the thoughts about Ronicky's statement?
Well, just with this statement as well, like you look at it and it just all, to me, feels very narcissistic, where it's all very much self-centered. He's using, and like near enough to call out, like, especially with the Rams stuff and the pitches where he's like, oh, I'm worried I'm getting kicked off. And Rams is there saying, oh, no, you're absolutely fine, and supporting him. And then naturally with the whole bad blood with Rams, of course, after the whole Triple Trouble departure, and that was largely from Ronicky. Tadpole and Rams still, they left on relatively good terms and all of that, and Rams respecting speed and all of that, and it all comes down to Ronicky. And we know personally from us, within our own little circle and that, where people have sort of been attacked by Ronicky, it's in casters we're talking about here. So this isn't unexpected. I think I said it on UGC last night. This sort of response just pretty much fits his character, and that to me, especially after, Tadpole come out with a very understanding thing and explain why he's hurt about it, and then Ronicky just puts out a sort of I'm the victim statement instead of any sort of logical, this is where it all led from. This actually to me felt very, this again should have been a post which was never made. This does not sort of help side his story unless you're someone that has not seen the whole situation. This is the first thing you've seen, because you look at it as a victim, not as someone that is just trying to sort of, gain a bit of favor back to him. It's all very sour, and this should have never been posted.
I mean, yeah, the whole situation shouldn't have been posted again. I've got my part about that later. But to summarize the response of people, again, a lot of people demonized Ronicky. Again, most of the issues stem from the fact that he didn't address the unpaid money. Also, some hypocrisy in his longer statement saying that, I don't want to cause drama, and I don't want to start, demonizing people, even though he literally went and demonized Tadpole just a couple paragraphs up. I think a lot of people also blamed him for not taking responsibility, which I don't think is 100% true. He did state in his tweet longer that he probably shouldn't have. He probably should have kept in more, kept in communication more with anything else, with everything else going on at the time. Overall, the consensus is that Ronicky is in the wrong. There was, however, some more backlash after the statement was published by Ronicky. Big shout out to Twitter user iFogaza, who actually screenshotted this tweet from Tadpole. He says, quote, went into this with no doubt you'd act like a victim. Thank you for not disappointing me. All we ever wanted was honesty from you. Do not go into this talk of professionalism when you're clearly not an advocate of being professional. It's laughable. Which you can level back at Tadpole, saying, well, you're the one who put the tweet longer out in the first place. You're the one who kind of, came out and started this whole thing when it absolutely did not need to go to the public domain. And Tadpole eventually walked that back, deleted it, and then went on to say he's going to stop himself from replying and end off the drama. He says, for those of you wondering, I don't want this drama. I honestly don't. Which again, why did you put the tweet longer out in the first place? You can see I'm starting to warm up here, Bacon. I'm just broken that someone I consider family would stab us in the back this way and then try and play victim after it. After that, also, Base said he put out an own independent statement, but didn't want to, because he just kind of wanted things to go away. So, Bacon, I want to get your response to everything in regard to the statements first before we get into the implosion, essentially.
So for me, it largely just stems down to a lot of the reasons for this are all understandable. Naturally, the whole change about has come around really quickly. The start of Barcelona, near enough from rumours and inside sources and that, it all started with Bluey near enough getting kicked off the team, weren't it? And then the org stepping in, and going, no, stick together. Then Alpha gets the offer to move over to TSM, which again hasn't been accepted, but TSM don't even tweet about their Rocket League team, so I don't even expect that to get tweeted in the end now, because they still haven't even tweeted that Ignite's off the roster. It's not even official there, but it is. So looking at that, that was more like, oh, okay, TSM paying to break Alpha's contract, bring them on board, make a stronger team, makes sense. They need to fill that man. Where they look, probably another relatively striking force within the whole of EU. Ronicky makes sense, and we'll just see how that goes in and the team fits together naturally. I think this could be a bit of an implosion due to egos there, but we'll just see how that goes on.
Absolutely it was, because as you can see from the statement published by Triple Trouble, the last tweet that they've had on their account was a big announcement saying it's incredibly difficult and heartbreaking announcement to make, aptly more by the events of the last couple of days. As most of you know, Ronicky decided on Monday the 29th to leave the roster indefinitely. This came as a shock to everyone. We scrambled to see if we could save our spot in the upcoming Beyond the Summit Major, which is where we announced Cassio's return to the roster. Many would have presumed that this was then a permanent roster and the next iteration of Triple Trouble going forward. However, this is not the case. As of today, Cassio has decided to depart the roster for another team, which leaves us with 1/3 starting members from the RLCS. Therefore, it is with great discomfort and sadness we have no choice but to forfeit our RLCS spot for Season 8. This could have been seen coming from a mile away, I think, Bacon, especially after everything kind of fell off. I'm as a fan, I am disappointed, and as a fan, I'm upset. As a journalist, though, I'm pissed off beyond fucking belief.
To me, it all seems like, the Spider-Man meme where there's two Spider-Mans pointing at each other. It is that dumb, essentially both sides just throwing, blaming each other when really this should have never been made public. We were talking about it again on UGC last night. This should have been a case of these teams keeping it private in DMs, and then once this realization happened, before they make this statement, they essentially go to, your Octane GG, if Rocketeers is still posting stuff, even us, and basically say, right, this is the full rundown, this is what happened, and then try and keep it in-house. We're going to make this post coming up on this day at this time. Please don't post anything then, but you can feel free to write up your articles about it. As soon as you see that tweet go out, just post whatever you want. That's already out in the open. You can do your little pieces on it. But for it to just be this sort of everyone talking about it before there's any official statement, it makes not only the team look bad, to the point if they could have got Cassio back, this would have been a team where probably most orgs wouldn't have picked up purely on that, on the bad shit was going down.
As soon as Tadpole put out that tweet longer, he fucked Triple Trouble big time, right? Because and something that I don't think a lot of pro players understand is optics, right? You would have the Tadpole set back Triple Trouble by 1.5 miles with that whole statement, with everything about that, because it's one thing to come out and say, look, Ronicky owes me money, it's been too long, I want payment, and the only way I'm going to do that is with public pressure. That's one thing. That's the only part that should have gone live. But you're unjustified in talking about a roster move for an unorganization team. If you went back and signed another deal when he's already under contract with an organization, then okay, then there's legal disputes to have. That's the point where you're going to be talking about, some possibility of public unrest. But as it stands, you have no legal obligation to each other. So why you're treating this like a family, I have no idea. It's business at the end of the day. And I know I'm going to be, that might be an unpopular opinion for a lot of people, but that's the way that I see it. You're not here to make friends, you're here to play, you're here to win. And yes, friends will be made. That's the way, that's the nature, that's human nature. But at the end of the day, you've also got to accept the fact that people are going to look to a different, to look to move to a different team. And Tadpole himself has already stated that he was already trying to support Ronicky in doing so. So when you open up those floodgates, what else are you going to expect, essentially? What else are you going to expect if you allow a player to go to try out with another team? You expect him, you expect that he's going to stick with Triple Trouble? Yes, he should have been a little bit more communicative about the whole situation. But why this had to go to the public domain, I have absolutely no idea. And again, it's terrible optics. If I was an organization looking at this situation, if Triple Trouble had stuck together, I would not be touching that shit with a barge pole. And that's not the right name for this kind of brand, because Triple Trouble is loved beyond belief. And the fact that it had to end like this is a fucking shambles. Absolute fucking shambles. And of course,
again,
Ronicky...
when you look at
Ronicky has his own blame to have in this particular case. Obviously, he still hasn't addressed the whole money issue, which he absolutely should, by the way. And obviously, he's been completely silent. But I will say something about Ronicky as well, is that who's holding themselves in more professional regard with this? He's had one statement, hasn't responded to anything. He's at least tried to save face a little bit in the public eye, which overall for his career will work better for him. This statement going out by Triple Trouble, by Tadpole, will affect his career going forward, because people will see that and they'll know that he dropped amounts of money. They'll know that he leaked into the public domain, just blasted it on Twitter, the new team that Ronicky will be going to, which if you're behind the scenes, you'll know about that already, but everybody else will be seeing that like, well, it's basically confirmed. I know that FC Barcelona are pissed about that whole thing, right? Many other organizations will look at that saying like, well, we don't want our PR game to get completely wrecked by someone who has an agenda or who has a vendetta. You fucked yourself. You have fucked yourself so bad. And Base is another thing as well. Base, man, I respect you a lot, but you said that Ronicky lied about you. You need to clarify that right now. I know it's going to start drama, but in the end, it's not worth it to just sit back on the throne of lies, which could potentially damage you, right? That's the way it should be held. Maybe it's not serious enough in your opinion, but you shouldn't stand for that, because more and more people are going to start lying about you and more shit's going to start coming out and is going to start slandering your name. You need to clear this shit up right now. Everybody does. Everyone has fault in this particular regard. This whole situation was handled fucking poorly beyond belief, and it's led to the demise of one of my favorite brands in all of Rocket League, the favorite brand of most of the people in Rocket League, a team that had so much potential, and it's all been wasted.
And it was a team that had done everything right. If you look at a bubble scene team, they're essentially doing the exact same as Savage, arguably though with a better community led by the players. And this was a team which got unlucky, of course, with the whole Red Reserve deal. And you would have thought they would be the next team to get picked up in the whole of the EU, especially if, you know, the whole Fortnite. I was going to say Fortnite coming up, you know, big money in there. It's now got a lot of brands looking towards esports. Suddenly you've got Rocket League that's just been bought out by the same devs, and that's prime for the pickup. If they'd stuck together for, let's just say, another 6 months, you could have had some brands coming in, even more football teams come in to try and pick up this esport, and it's all sort of gone back and shot them in the foot. At the same time, it gives more proof and realization why these tier 1 esports teams don't want to pick Rocket League teams up at the moment. They're just sitting by idly waiting.
We've got enough fucking problems with teams and organizations getting involved, right? We don't need this shit right now. We don't need this from you. We don't need it from anyone else in Europe right now. And this is another thing I'll say as well, by the way. What the fuck is Europe's damage in terms of personal issues and personal problems, right? This week it was was Triple Trouble. Last week it was TSM. Who's next? Who's going to fuck their team next, right? What is with this issue?
The only one we can say is the Barca thing, where Barca stepped in. Like, rights to that team, like, we even know as journalists, you know, going to them, Jay, and we've asked for interviews, and they go, no, sorry, we're not going to do that. And we can respect that aspect because they're professional about it. That's just how it is. It's like, they're controlling their players, saying, no, we don't want interviews. Fair enough. You've given us a decent reason. We're not going to hassle you about it, you know? That's just how it is. And for them to sort of, like, as we know, stop the whole Bluey getting kicked because they're like, you kids are dumb. You know, you're on your contracts. Just stay to it. You're professionals. And then just the whole alpha move makes more sense. Yes, in that case where there's going to be a buyout clause from TSM to take Alpha's contract, that makes sense. And in a lot of those cases, actually, Barca makes money off of that because that's how the whole esports thing and player contracts work. And they're not going to hinder a player for that because then that looks like bad, you know, PR to essentially say, oh, no, we're keeping a player under lock and key, you know, to our roster. So there we can respect Barca, especially PSG as well. The football clubs have got this nailed down. But we've seen it in the past.
Football clubs, so they're used to saying this shit in the past, you know?
Yeah. But like we were saying about how TSM doesn't tweet anything, it's the orgs that don't do anything about their teams and don't mention anything which we're worried about, and then it's the unorg teams where they just feel like they can do this sort of stuff. It's because they don't have PR and set. You can't. You've got to keep, like we were saying, everything private in DMs, and then you just basically make this last statement that Triple Trouble did, and just put that out, and that should be it. Like, the public do not need to know. It would then become, if anything of this does get leaked, and you'll know it from what is currently going on with like the CS drama of ninjas and pajamas and all of that, Jay, of course, it happens 4-5 years down the line, maybe even 6 actually in this case, where it's the players that now are out contracts, have no affiliation, so it's not actually going to hurt them because they're past that whole level, where then they break it out and you learn, oh shit, that's what happened back then. But that's because that does not hurt a single person's career from it.
Yeah, there are other ways to solve things other than just public outrage and drama, essentially, right? There are much better ways of going about things, and this was very clearly the wrong way to go about things. Well, obviously, it ended with Triple Trouble, obviously, just imploding entirely. Roddicky left, Cassio left for better things, and there is the prospect that maybe Cassio had that maybe because of the whole drama, Cassio decided, well, I'm gonna go ahead and go with the team that's giving me an offer right now, rather than sticking around with Triple Trouble, who could go higher, you know, because the team he's going to was Veloce, and Veloce themselves, they're actually a lower ranked team than Triple Trouble were, essentially. Like, they were in the RLRS, they weren't in RLCS. Triple Trouble had that spot, so Cassio definitely had reasons to stay on Triple Trouble, but there's a possibility where his mentality game was looking at this whole shit show and saying, do you know what? I think I'm good. I think I'm gonna, go somewhere else, even though it could compromise my career overall, at least in the short term. And that's and again, it's terrible optics. Terrible optics. You have to consider all these things because you are a public figure, right? You're a public figure, and people are going to look at you, and people are going to, see this shit, especially in a professional light, and they're going to say, right, we want to get involved. We don't want to get involved with this kind of stuff. And again, it has hurt the careers of everybody involved, every single person.
I'm going to say now as well, Veloce, the players themselves have been fighting so hard to get into RLCS. They didn't want to earn their spot this way naturally, of course, because it's just been near enough free for them. But Veloce as an org, I say get massively behind them, because naturally knowing them from the sim racing realm and that, Jay, this is a fantastic org and one that you should rep. They're really respectful. The only thing here is that they're not, I would argue, even a tier 2 org within the grand scheme of esports. Sim racing was their thing and this was their first step out, so they're more of a tier 3. So those lads probably are going to be, they're going to be in a situation where they won't be on the same money as the other players. And I actually want this to sort of stem into its own little culture of players understanding that not everyone's going to be on, 5-digit numbers as a salary. No, that's not how it works. Just because your opponent, say your Dignitas is on that wage, does not mean that you're going to be on that wage. And so I'm hoping that from this, some players are going to look at this and go, they're actually respectful of their players. They're trying to back them up. Money isn't everything because, even if you're on, let's just say, $4,000 a month, that's a fuck ton of money. You're getting way over double what the average person earns.
Getting double what I earn a month, I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, easy peasy. And so just think of it that way. Don't wait out for the top tier orgs, because you've got a lot of tier 2 and tier 3 orgs now looking at RLCS, looking at those spots and going, okay, we can pick up teams because those tier 1s are scared to come in because they're waiting. We quickly swoop on in. That's, for them anyway, for the business perspective, is to come in with a lower wage, and then when those tier 1s are actually interested, they sell you as a team off to the big guys, because the big guys can actually pay for those transfer fees and the buyouts near enough. So they're looking in. So get yourselves that. Yes, it's a weaker salary at the moment, but get yourselves sponsored in that, mainly for your expenses, because we're looking at, say, Montreal coming up. And if you're an unsigned team, let's have a look at the Bricks at the moment, for an example. They might not be able to get over there unless they fund it themselves, or if there's a sudden pickup, from a sponsoring org. So just right now, just be smart about it, guys. You don't have to have the biggest dicks around. Just pick up what works and something that's safe and secure, because you got to remember your players as well. That should be what your main focus is when you're on this level. So just have a sustainable salary so that you don't have to work a part-time or a full-time job to live. Just have a salary that's enough, and then down the line there will be bigger things coming, because me and Jay, we can both say with the whole Epic acquisition, what's going on, Tencent and China, there is going to be a whole evolution to Rocket League coming along, or so there should be, from how everything's stacking.
You don't want to mess it up now, essentially. You don't want to mess it up now. Because you mess it up now, you're not going to get a chance in the future. So learn from this And do not repeat these mistakes. Everybody. I'm saying this to everybody in the European scene. Because again, it's not the first time we've seen shit like this go down. I doubt it will be the last if things keep going down this particular route. Do not fuck this up because we want to be taken seriously. You want to be taken seriously, Bacon? I want to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's start acting professional then.
Let's
start acting like actual professionals. Right. Let's move on. I think we've said enough about the triple trouble thing at that particular regard. Unfortunately, it doesn't mean that they're dead.
Be done with this. Wash your hands and don't fucking never talk about it again.
Like I said, I didn't want to be here today because of this topic. I just can't be asked. I'm not a happy bunny today. So there you go. I said my piece. You've said your piece. Let's move on and see about the piece of other teams and other things going on in the Rocket League scene because there are other things going down. It's National Girlfriend Day, Bacon. Unfortunately, Europe has had a big old breakup. Because Turbopolsa has left the region. He's left the continent. He is going to North America to join NRG. Not surprised.
Yes.
Not surprised.
Happy boys.
Not surprised at all. Not in the slightest. Like, you know, we heard about this for ages. We saw how well he played with the Randy Gibbons River Rats back at DreamHack Valencia. Like, he's a natural talent that can slot himself into North America pretty well. And this could end up being a move that catapults NRG to top 1 in the world, potentially.
Right, Jay, Tim 4 hat time. Maybe the move to catapult the whole of Europe because we finally got the start of the invasion going across. We got all these bubble scene players that are better than, a lot of RLRS teams on the day, RLCS teams, and NA is fucking trash. We've said it before, not NA's trash. You got your top 3 teams, your G2, your Cloud9, NRG, and then Rogue's coming along. Really happy with them. Apart from that, the players are just not of the same caliber and level. There's a big divide there, naturally. So, if we start looking at these orgs, wanting to get an NA, and you're looking at these players, why not just transfer over the EU pool of talent that is currently in the bubble scene, and then you've got stronger players that can compete on that strong level? I'm just saying, the EU is ripe for the picking because there are way too many players for their own goddamn good.
Yeah, we've opened the floodgates now because it's the first time that we've seen Europe and North America actually trade players between each other. There have been ramblings and thoughts going on about that in the past. It's been blocked off by Psyonix in the past, but this one certainly has not. And again, with Turbo's sort of veterancy in the scene and with the potential and NRG's sort of talent on their side, they've already proven themselves to be a top 2 team in the world right now. This could be the little air of consistency that pushes them to top 1. It sucks the Fireburner had to go to make move for this move, but holy shit, what an upgrade. What a player they found, NRG, man. Turbopolsa could be on his way to 4th-time championship and a massive... I'm not saying that lightly. This could actually happen. This could be a fucking...
See, that's the weird one as well, because, Fireburner is a good player, but Turbo is a great player as well, and it just comes I can't... Because NRG, on their day, is a top team in the world, it just becomes Fireburner want to step down. Who do you take out of all the free agents that are in NA or any of the players you could poach from NA? They're not Turbo, not of that level, so this is the best pickup, and you got to think NRG's picking him up for free because his contract with Dig had finished, so they're just having to pay essentially the the fees to work over in NA, get his visa for that. So for this, and in that same time, there probably will be part of his contract where they'll pay for his accommodation, rent a house for him. There's talks of him moving over to Georgia, for example. But for this is the best possible player I could see him pick up, because Turbo can probably go to near enough any team, because he's one of those players and just fit in. Now, that leaves, of course, Justin and Garrett, who already have their chemistry going from playing together for a while. Bring in Turbo. We saw what he can do, a la River Rats. And so... I'm happy for this move. This is not going to weaken. We can pretty much go, this isn't going to weaken NRG. If they stay on the same level, that's good for NRG because they're still a top 3 team in NA. But it should keep them on the same level, but there's the possibility of them improving, which is great.
Yeah, I can see that being a thing. I can see that happening. I can honestly see NRG again being the best team in the world off the back of this particular result. So, I think that does mean
at the same time, for them being able, because NRG is all about the image, naturally, as an org, aren't they? That's how they are. So for them to be able to come in and basically go, we're the first Rocket League team to bring in an EU player to overseas, it's just, again, another chance for them to swing their big dicks around. That is it.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, you know, they've got to find something to swing their big dicks around because obviously the rebrand was a fucking disaster. Holy shit. It's terrible.
Hey, they're not apologetic about it, apparently. I'm
They
sure
should be.
they mistyped it. It seems like the intern was typing up that on his phone because even then the branding ain't great. Like it's still an 80s telecom company, and then all their logos now on the shirts are just a simple font on the side. It's a mess. I don't know why they thought it was a good idea. Jesus.
Mate, like I swear, like what is it with all esports organizations thinking it's a good idea to destroy the branding that you've built up, right?
What team
like,
is next on the chopping board? That is pretty much
fucking
it.
hell knows. Like, you know, like with NRG, it's a little bit less stingy because they're a relatively new organization. But with teams like Dig and fucking Complexity, it's just like, why would you destroy?
I figured out who it's going to be. It's going to be Ninjas in Pajamas. You can see it with the whole shit they're getting in a moment. They'll probably do a rebrand.
You're onto something there, actually. Yeah, no, it could well be fucking thing. Sorry, our producer Traction just turned around and said you should give Cloud9 the OneDrive logo. That's brilliant. That's fantastic. No, like again, like branding aside, NRG they know how to sneak out talent. They know how to find talent. They know the games that they get involved with. CS:GO is one of those ones where NRG have had like a really dominant North American side. Obviously they've been consistently like top 4, top 3 in North America for Rocket League, and this is a move. Obviously their hand has been forced, but they've managed to come out swinging in that one. And they probably could have a decent run at the World Championship. They're a team to watch for the next RLCS season. It does mean, Bacon, that for our coverage we're gonna have to start watching NRG matches because Turbo obviously is a pretty significant individual. So
this means we just get no sleep. That's it.
Yeah, we might at this point we might as well just do NA Aftershock at this point. Like fuck it, you know. There you go. That's the next project. Every night at stupid o'clock in the morning, we're going to start doing North America shit. Right, let's move on and talk about Beyond the Summit. Obviously, that was announced last week. And this week they have announced the teams, Triple Trouble notwithstanding, that will be involved in that particular tournament. We've got Rogue, Cloud9, NRG, and G2 from the North American side, and from EU, PSG, Rando Vitality, the Bricks, and a fourth team that is yet to be decided. There should be an announcement coming relatively soon about that regard. Again, it's Triple Trouble that was originally supposed to take that spot. Now, obviously, they can't do that. Yeah, a pretty good lineup of squads, actually. I love this. I really love this. I especially love the fact that they got, on-organization teams involved. They could have very easily gone for a Dignitas or or another team from the European region that has sort of like an org backing them for the sake of the viewership and the fans. But they went for the teams that probably were the best in the region, and I'm happy with that.
They
and I'm
picked
happy
top
that they
four
went
for both regions at this moment.
And the cool thing
in
about
time
that as well is that they don't even have to do that because the Bricks didn't even go to LAN. They were in relegation, so you could have made the argument that the Bricks wouldn't have, shouldn't have deserved a spot. But the fact that they saw the potential in what they did in Valencia and took that into account before inviting them, I love that. I absolutely love that. Beyond the Summit have already, put them in one of my top 4 organizations for the tournament organizers, essentially, in Rocket League. So big up Beyond the Summit. It's a hell of a first impression to make, and a hell of a lineup that they can have.
Yeah, the only difference now, of course, with Triple Trouble dropping, who they're going to pick up, my money would probably be on Complexity or Dig. Out of those two, Barca, of course, with the new move, they could bring in, and the same for TSM. But is Rocket League or Beyond the Summit going to want to bring in them when they know already, without having to break any sort of NDAs and that on player announcements? Just bring in Complexity or Dig, they're the easy options, and you can expect them to play at a good level at the tournament. I would personally love to see Complexity for, this new up-and-coming team to get the chance at that. But either way, whatever team they pick, it's going to be solid there because EU's pretty much stacked, so they're all going to be of a high level and be able to take on each other because that's how it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I'm hyped. Beyond the Summit, obviously, a great premier organizer in Rocket League. Sorry, not in Rocket League, in Dota and CS:GO in the past. To have them on for Rocket League is just massive. Obviously, they've got that chill vibe going on. It would be much like a Gold Rush, except with a threes tournament rather than a ones tournament. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm hyped. I'm gonna be loving when that whole thing rolls around. Keep your eyes locked to the channels and keep your eyes locked to that particular event. It starts on the 16th 16th of August, so it's in a couple of weeks' time. We'll be bringing you all the coverage here on RLAfterShock, of course, when it does roll around. Certainly one to be watching and certainly one to enjoy. That's going to be it for your news this week. Still got, of course, our mailbag to cover, though. Again, big shout out to the boys over in the Discord channel. It blew the fuck up when Triple Trouble had their run-ins.
Christ, yeah.
We couldn't get all the questions in, partly because I've been busy today, so I wasn't able to screenshot everything. We have got a couple that sort of link into each other, and again, links back into the it links back into the Triple Trouble thing. So we'll answer those two on the podcast, and we'll come back and loop around, do the rest next week. So if your question didn't make it in this week, then of course, don't worry, we will be able to do that. Of course, if you do want to ask a question, it's !Discord in the Twitch channel right now. You can go ahead and find the Discord server. In the Mailbag channel is where you can put your mailbag questions, and a good chance we'll answer it live on an episode of RLAfterShock. If you're listening to the audio or video versions, then it's in the description and show notes of every single episode of the podcast, along with the Twitter channels and all the rest of the details. So, Trox, our Mr. Staff Man, our social media manager, our twat, whatever you want to call him. You know, he's a good lad. We love him to bits.
Sugar Daddy, I think is
Sugar
the
Daddy,
correct
yeah,
term.
Sugar Daddy. He funds RLAfterShock now. We sold out. So, yeah. He asks, another topic that is interesting to me. What is you guys' take on pro players basically leaking more than Danny Boy? Shout out to Danny, I see you in the Twitch channel. When he reads anything Jay posts. I love that.
Obviously, I kind of, yeah.
Yeah, obviously, I kind of like it as it gives me some access to information that can be valuable, but it can also hurt the professionalism if that exists at this point in time of the esports scene. I barely hear any roster leaks from other esports games, and I'm interested in a few. Do you think contracts and or publisher punishments would be a reason to keep those under closed curtains? And another question that loops back into that as an extension. Ties Vogels, welcome back to the mailbag. Nice to have you here. He says, as an extension to the above question, with all the drama and leaks that's been going on, do you think the Psyonix or Epic should have rules about keeping roster moves private and out of the public eye until a roster lock? And if the rules are broken, enforce punishment? Wow.
Well, straight off the bat, that second one would just be like the fact that you have to bring it up just shows the state of the scene at the moment. Say, Silence should step in so they don't break, their near enough roster lock rules and all of that sort of thing. It's just like the fact that you're breaking roster lock rules is bad enough, and the org should be able to control their teams better. And that is what this all generally stems down to, isn't it? Like orgs should be able to control their teams. Naturally, in the case of Triple Trouble, when we looked at that, where they're unsigned, they don't have an overarching figure looking after them. But it's still the point that the professionalism we talked about earlier should be a case of you talk to everyone involved that could possibly hurt you, or, you know, in the sense of you go to journalists, you go to tournament organizers, like in this case, and Beyond the Summit, and you say, right, this is what's going to happen. You sort of have you don't have to sign NDAs in those cases, but you just go, right, this is what's going to happen. If they fuck you and release early, you know who's fucked you and released early, so you never disclose that to them again. And you should generally know the sources.
I'm gonna go against that one, because if you protect source anonymity, then I think it's okay to publish things early. Like that's the reason why we have our like a per sources sort of article. That's like the sort of how we do it here on Aftershock, is that we never reveal who's given us the information. We oftentimes have liaisons who deliver this information to protect the identity of the sources, which is absolutely fair if people want to do it that way. If they're willing to share the information, they want to get it out to us, then of course there's people you can contact with that.
Yeah, but that's different to the actual orgs or the players themselves trying to. In that case,
if it's a press release, if it's a press release, then yeah, obviously, then you would never send press back to that particular journalist and that particular publication ever again. As for whether the tournament organizer, whether Psyonix should step in and have more control over things, I think not. I don't like that idea. I think it's a bit too authoritarian. I do agree that it is highly, highly unprofessional, as Trox mentions there. You shouldn't be doing shit like what happened this week, where you just essentially go on Twitter and say this guy's going to this place, and essentially just like just put it out on blast. Like, you shouldn't do that. As I mentioned earlier, it is something that will hurt you overall. But that is punishment enough, because Tadpole's going to have a hard time getting onto an organization and onto a proper team over the next at least year, 6 months or so.
He'll have to make the RLRS play-in run, like we were joking about last night.
He will have to do the Savage.
What we want to see is the sort of leftovers to him. Niels has just lost his job over on Veloce, because he's getting replaced with Casio. And let's say Ignite. All three of them join together in their leftovers to Electric Boogaloo. That is it.
Yeah, and if they could do it like that, then fair enough. Then they could reprove their worth, and then maybe teams are looking into that and trying to figure things out. But that's punishment enough, in my opinion, because do we think that can make it? Do we think that could work? I don't know. I mean, personally, I have my doubts about that particular side. If we just wanted to play theory for a little bit, again, in terms of getting onto another team, getting onto another organization, there's a good chance that teams and orgs will want to veto the idea of someone who did that coming in and changing things about. So. That's punishment enough. I don't think that teams I don't think that Psyonix or Epic should come in and start issuing out punishments for people who leak that shit, because again, it generates discussion. At the end of the day, it's gonna get out regardless, right? It's gonna get out no matter what happens. Through anonymous sources, through reports, through gentlemen's agreements, through word of mouth. The grapevine's obviously a great thing. Wikipedia had its own little page about rumors, and it creates speculation and buzz. And the idea that you should enforce rules to try and kill that is probably more harmful to the Rocket League scene than anything else, I think.
If anything, with the case of, say, Ronicky moving over the Barca, it should have been a case of it's locked in and you go, oh, this is the very last tournament that Ronicky plays with Triple Trouble. And you could even get some sort of joint agreement that essentially Ronicky at the event just has to wear a Barca jersey. And, you do some sort of agreement there, but you don't break up the roster for this tournament because you should already be locked in and flights were already booked and all of that sort of shit. It's essentially the professionalism of it, because like I was describing it there, we've seen it before where essentially a player turns up in a different jersey, either because they've had to sub into that team from another signed team, or just in this case of they've accepted they've already moved on, but they had already signed up for this tournament or were invited to the tournament, so they play it anyway. That's how you professionally handle this sort of scenario here. We can understand them not wanting to pull through with that because of the now bad blood with it. But like we said, if it was handled better, there wouldn't be as much bad blood and they could have done it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And to answer your point about, obviously, Truck says, I barely hear any roster leaks from other esports games. It really, how much you hear from other games and how much you hear from other tournaments and teams, it all depends on how well connected you are. We're well connected in Rocket League, therefore we're going to hear about all these things. We're going to know about everything that's going on behind the scenes. We're going to get people coming to us. We're going to be able to confirm things. Again, we've got our liaisons, we've got our sources, we've got our people who come to us directly or indirectly, asking us about whatever, or giving us information about whatever.
Half the leaks were already said on Twitter by the players themselves. It was for example, the whole Casio confirming the move over was actually initially leaked, I think it was by Tigre, before within the next hour it came out from one of the Triple Trouble posts, essentially. So it was that case of the players themselves are the ones doing the leaking, which you don't see publicly on Twitter in other esports. That's what I think Trox is trying to get at there, and that's something the players need to, hit on the head and stop doing.
Yeah, pretty much. Again, it's a complicated issue, Again, I feel like that obviously the teams and players shouldn't leak it into the public domain. That's the reason why we have journalists, so that way we can take the hit for it. So that way, you can, if you want to leak something, if you want to say something, then you can come to us and we can put it out in the public domain on your behalf without having you mentioned at all. There's a great way to generate money off the back of that. That's how a lot of sports pundits and sports reporters essentially end up conducting their business. One of the famous examples in Counter-Strike is a guy called DK, who is a great journalist, has a lot of great investigative reporting. A lot of my basis for leaking rumors and talking about rosters on this show is actually based off of his own code of conduct, which is absolutely fantastic. Getting two sources, making sure they're reputable, making sure it's from the horse's mouth. Or in the case of finding someone, a liaison who's very trustworthy, who brings things, who gives things other than I've lost my fucking train of thought. The bottom line is that he's very good.
If you've got one source and that's it, it's not trustworthy. Yeah, you've got two very distant from each other people saying the same thing, then it's worth it. There's some glimmer of truth to it.
Yeah, the bottom line is that his career is built off that entire thing. That's his shtick. He's happy to go out of his way and do that for the sake of bringing attention to a website who pays him overall for his work. That's a way to make money, and again, that's a way to generate buzz because it gets people speculating. And obviously, if it has a reputable name like DK coming in and saying this shit behind saying this stuff, it's like, okay, this actually might be a thing. And it's like, oh, now it's really interesting. Oh, wow. Now all this stuff starts to make sense because now we've got per sources agreements and stuff. And sometimes it doesn't always work out. Sometimes things change at the last second. Sometimes things go through and it's like, oh, wow, yeah, he was right about things. It generates a lot of buzz in that regard. So any punishments or sort of restrictions imposed on a team or on a player or anybody else like that, it would be a great loss for Rocket League. It would be a great loss for Rocket League overall.
Yeah, it's more of a case of it shouldn't actually be needed as such. With that, Jay, I think we're done with Mailbag. I think we can move on to.
I think we should have more Mailbag
really
questions.
Talk about this week, actually.
Yeah, I think we should have had more Mailbag questions. Not going to lie.
There was a good follow-up one from Trox actually, which I guess we can talk about. Maybe
do you want to talk about that?
Let's talk about that one because I like the idea of bringing it up now because it is sort of like for a solution to this problem of without all the leaks and that. So
is it the last two of the channel?
I would have just gone with the very last one there, the channel.
Oh, the franchising one.
Yeah, the franchising one, basically. We don't need to bring up staff players. I reckon that can be its own thing next week.
Oh, then, okay, well, let me just send a screenshot to Tractor so we can last second add that. Sorry, mate. I really hate
about editing on the fly. People at home, this is actually what happens.
Well, Trox, again, asks this. Again, there's plenty of questions to go through, so we will get through them next week, the ones that we've missed on this week. Asks, what's your guys' opinion on franchising systems used in different esports? Will a split system, franchising in North America, standard in the EU, work, or easing up the people to train this like they did in League of Legends? Well, I've made my opinions abundantly clear on franchising in the past. I do not like it in the slightest. I think it kills the core of what esports is about, being an open circuit, an open system for anyone to be able to get involved. There are advantages to a franchising system, but I think there's a better alternatives, essentially. Yeah. For use in different esports, it depends. Obviously, Overwatch League and Call of Duty World League and League of Legends have opted for the entire franchising system, which is where I take a look at that and say I do not like that. I do not agree with that. It's not the way that I would want to run my esport, and it's not something I want to be personally involved with as a result. And that's sort of like where I think it kind of rests, because essentially those are the top tournaments. Those are like the big dogs. Those are the world championships, your premier level events, essentially. They're like your RLCS, except in their respective games. And I do think that the franchising has led to some pretty decent products, like the Overwatch League, for example, which did have a pretty good first season, in my opinion, in terms of a broadcasting perspective and everything like that. I don't think that that's the trade-off that's worth it, essentially, when it comes to the limitations and the people who are currently competing in the open circuit who don't get a chance to get involved in that without, some hardcore politicking. That's another thing that I also hate about the franchising system, is that it's not just down to your skill. If you have a promotion relegation system, then it is exclusively down to your skill. If you make it into the RLCS, no one can touch you because you have proven your worth over the course of a season, beating out promotion teams and managed to find your way into that. That being said, though, there are some franchise systems I like exclusively because they are meant to be a side tournament or a tournament that doesn't represent the top end of the scene. Stuff like the Gfinity Elite Series, for example. That's one of the trademark ones that I always say I actually kind of like that. In part also because it also was the premier tournament for the EU scene and allowed some really big names to come out of the woodwork and make a big name for themselves in the bubble scene in the RLRS. Guys like Banana Man, guys like Cynical, guys like obviously Speed came through the Gfinity Elite Series, for example. Junior came through the Gfinity Elite Series. EXO came through the Gfinity Elite Series.
Rich Ronde and Burrito
being, they're part of Reason Gaming. The old boys Tigre was part of Reason Gaming as well with that particular side. So many big names have come through the Gfinity Elite Series, and I think that when you've done it like that, for example, then that's where it's beneficial to the scene overall. And it's not supposed to represent the top end of Rocket League. It's supposed to represent a decent level, but it's not the World Championship. It's a regional thing that's only supposed to be specified to that region. Gave a lot of investments, a lot of return of investment. Gave Gfinity as a whole a massive leg up in the industry. And overall, while I do not like the idea of franchising as it's inherently done, the way that they've adapted it to this, and the way that they haven't tried to push it to be the biggest tournament in the world, I like that and I appreciate that. That, and they also had a system to actually try and counteract the exclusivity of a franchise system and try and bring new players into the fold through their drafts and subsystem, which I actually think that worked really well, much better than other combine or draft systems that we've had in esports over the course of its 25-year history.
I don't know. It could have worked better with like Gfinity as the example,
it's not flawless. But I will say that if you take a look at something like the CGS, for example, like the Gfinity draft was much better than CGS.
No, it's the best there's
Absolutely.
been so far. That's what we can say. Because again, you got to think you're trying to make it safe for the franchise team. Like I was saying, the only way for the draft system to actually work would be to have, say, in-house teams, and that, for example, your Reason Gaming, who are owned by Gfinity essentially, and then they pick up drafted teams.
I think they got bought back by the old owners.
They bought back from themselves, but at the time it was anyway, you know. But really, I can understand the idea of the pros to, you know, the franchise system right now, because in both NA and EU, we do have in the top tier at least 2 teams either side without orgs to them. If you had franchised, then all those spots would be franchise teams, and then you would have your RL, RS being the capped of the, like, you know, your contenders, the actual one where anyone can sign up for. But again, like Jay was saying, where the peak of it is franchised, it feels very sour. You want side tournaments, say an invitational-esque tournament coming in for each side, where essentially it'd be, okay, let's have the, not DreamHack, but an ESL, we'll call it ESL Masters for namesake, whatever, because I always use Masters for fucking everything as my template name for it, Jay. If you've seen any of the Rewind stuff, you know. Every idea that comes up becomes something like EU Masters, Open Masters, and that's a template name for me to do for projects. But essentially, you could do, I don't know, 4 teams from NA, 4 teams at EU, play off again over one weekend, and it's just a one-off sort of little tournament, and you've invited those teams in for those spots. Technically, that is a bit of a franchising system, because you'd be going to them, okay, for coming out, you can get a bit of money. Like, the prize pool money might not be fantastic. Let's just say it'd be 20,000, which for these teams is only just on the cusp of making it worthwhile, essentially. But where you've got everyone together in the high status, it could get a lot of viewership for it. And that's the only time I can actually see it work. And you could do, say, the bottom 2 teams from each region. Sorry, not bottom 2, but the bottom 2 from that tournament then drops its spot, and someone else has to come through. And then you create a sort of pseudo, not pseudo, but half franchised, half you can earn your spot there, which that's the only way I like franchising sort of working, is if you have to earn your franchise spot and earn that safety before you drop it.
Again, I feel like the way that Psyonix have approached things is a bit more like a compromise. Again, I've mentioned the ECS system in the past, about how good that is, essentially great sort of...
my favourite one to do,
yeah. That is my favourite one as well, but I also like the revenue share opportunities that Psyonix have given and that PEL have given, for example, the PUBG Europe League, actually the PUBG national leagues as a whole, you know, the North American one, the Korean one, they all have revenue share from within the game through in-game items, and also I think they have like a deal where sponsors also give a little bit of money to the teams as well. So there's a lot of there are a lot of alternatives to the way things work. And all of these tournaments as well, by the way, they have promotion relegation systems. PEL just had their Phase 2 to Phase 3 promotion, for example. The same thing for NPL, which is the National PUBG League for North America. And obviously, they've got RLCS and RLRS with the in-game items for the organizations that take part in the RLCS, for example. So, yeah, there's a better way of doing things. And I think that there's a much more, there's a way to make money without having to segment things off and compromise the nature of esports, I think. I like the open circuit. I love what it delivers. I love the opportunity that it gives to players, and not only to players as well, but also like casters and admins and broadcasters and stuff, because it's a bigger thing than just the players themselves. There's like a whole world of opportunity in Counter-Strike. That's my bread and butter, essentially, because I was able to get that opportunity because it is so free over there. And I'd like to see that replicated more in some of the other esports. Again, that's part of the reason why I'm not a big fan of most of the other franchise systems.
But with that, I think we're done with Mailbag, and let's move on to our tournament roundup. Before
we do, I do want to say, again, if you do want to ask a Mailbag question, again, it's via the Discord links that are accessible by typing !Discord in the Twitch chat right about now. If you're watching or listening via the audio-video versions of the podcast, it's in the video description and show notes of every single episode of the podcast. And again, just follow that link, go to the server, join us, join our discussion, and of course, join the Mailbag channel where you can ask us a question. Chances are we'll answer it. live on air. Right, let's move on to the tournament roundup because there was one big significant tournament, the big online thing of the summer, which is the Rival Esports Summer Open. We had the pleasure of getting to cast this one, Bacon, and it was a pretty fun time. Rival always put on great tournaments. I love the formats. I love the guys that work behind the scenes. And I also love the fact that they're also upping their prize pool as well. The more money that Rival have been getting, the more they've been putting back into the prize pool, which, by the way, I think is an absolutely fantastic idea for any community tournament organizer.
Yeah, definitely. And the one thing we want to talk up, because there was a few upsets in this one. The only thing I'm going to have a little go at with the Rival Esports Summer Open was one team in particular. We commentated over them earlier in the day of the second day anyway, but it was the Oztec Warriors, Jay, and them signing up for the tournament when they full well truly knew that one of their players was away on holiday. That, for me, is a little bit annoying because the Summer Open's a capped tournament. There is only space for 32 teams.
Yeah.
So, for me, that's the only reason I've got a problem with it. The same you could say with Intact GG not turning up. Is essentially, if you've got a tournament where it is capped at a certain number of players, for me, it just spoils it that some teams that could have signed up, because I was getting asked throughout the week, because the way Rival do it is they open up, I think it's 12 spots at a time, or 12 spots, and then the following 10 spots, essentially. And I was getting asked by players and that, oh, why can't I sign up? They're why is it capped? And I was like, because that's how they run it. And it just feels shitty that some teams are able to get in, take a spot, and then not turn up for the tournament. That's bad.
I will say that it is much better turnaround than some of the other seasonal opens we've had in Rival Esports. Like I remember it was the Autumn Open, if I recall correctly, the one that had North America was cancelled because there was not enough of a sign-up. And obviously Europe felt that sting as well because their Swiss system was essentially completely canned because only like 2 teams showed up. Or something along those lines, So there was some real shit with that particular regard. I remember we brought it up on the podcast back in the day. For this one, though, not to be. I think those are the only 2 teams that had a forfeit in their in the one. So, Oztec Warriors, I mean, it wasn't too surprising that they went for that because obviously in the APL and China Open tournaments in that prior weekend, they had already forfeited some matches and forfeited a couple of those tournaments for various reasons. So it doesn't surprise me the fact that happened. Intact GG, I don't think I've heard of these players off the top of my head at least. So I don't. Yeah, I'm not too I'm not too
worried too fast.
I'm not too worried about them. It did allow Method a bit of a leg up, which of course is the next thing I'm going to talk about actually, because Method have disappointed once again, Bacon. Yeah,
it was a weird one as well because there shouldn't because who do they turn up with? Was it Mystic? I thought.
Ixo, actually.
No, sorry, Ixo. What the fuck happened there then?
This is the reason.
Ixo's good enough to carry on his own to the finals.
This is the reason why I wanted to bring this up, because for weeks we have been saying the Rix 1 and Burrito have not been working. This is the proof of all of that, right? Ixo is a fucking god, and you still couldn't get past the round of 16 in the open qualifiers without his assistance. What the fuck do you want us to do, guys? There is something inherently wrong with the core of this side, and no one is taking notice of it. It's been apparent for months, for actual months. And we're going around in circles. We're going around just constantly repeating the same shit over and over again. There's got to be something else here. There's got to be something else you can do.
The thing is, Jay, when you look at it as well, because they've got a secure spot for RLRS next season, at the same time, I can understand they're not going to split up between themselves.
Yeah, but all that means is that they're just going to fucking tank in the RLRS next season.
Mm-hmm.
They shouldn't. They fucked up. They fucked up big time. They could have. I mean, I understand the reasoning behind wanting to get rid of Ocelon and keep Rix on A and Burrito B, but they could have stuck with Ocelon, and either Rix or Burrito should have, taken the L on this one, conceded to find another third in that particular regard, and we wouldn't be in this shit show right now where it's literally the revolving door of Method. How many subs have they had in the last few months? They have had Snasky playing, Astral playing, Miztic playing, for fuck's sake. Everyone's been playing on this side lately, and it's not worked. They've constantly disappointed over and over again, you know. And you've had some really good players. Mystic's the fucking former world champion, for fuck's sake, if I recall correctly. Like, you know, like they've all got, you know, they've all got massive, like, you know, performance levels. Astral obviously was having a great time over on the aeriality side before he had a great time. You know, all of this shit, you know, all of these talent players have come in and they've not been able to fix fucking Method at all. And we're constantly going around in this circle again, a revolving door where players just go in and go out and they do not make anything happen. What more do you do? What more can you do?
They've just got to look to each other and try and sort that out, because it is so blatantly obvious. And what they really need to do is finally solidify themselves with a proper third, and then until play-ins start, actually scrim practice with them and fix out their problem there, because at the moment with them continuously pushing through a new third, that is not going to solve the problem. They just need to stick to one, say Ixo for example here, and just keep hammering out game after game with him and try and just come up with a brand new style for the team, because that's their best option if they want to make it far in the next RLRS. Because at the moment, with the bubble scenes coming through, with the power of EU, we've got as well, you got to think, 6 bloody spots coming up for the RLRS plans for EU. There is no hope in hell with the way Method's going at the moment for them to stay up next season. They only just scraped by for the last one, you know?
Yeah, and again, you know, if they had recognized this issue, if they had seen this and thought to themselves, okay, well, maybe it is time to break up the duo. You know, maybe it is time to break up the party, because they were only like 2 games off of getting relegated from the RLRS entirely. And if they did, then the Method that we see right now, I don't see them going back in RLRS next season. You know, they've kind of, you know, they've kind of made their bed already. Again, getting rid of Ocelon. They could potentially bring him back if they feel like he's going to be appropriate enough. I don't think he's joined another team as of right now, at least not according to my records. So, you know, there's an opportunity essentially for Rix or Burrito to come back in and try and fix things essentially between the two, between those 3 players. But they've already kind of made their bed. They've kind of got a lie in it right now. And again, there was no foresight on this whole move. There was no foresight on where Method would go, and they're eating it as a result. Like, this is again yet another disappointing result for a team that at one point were heralded as one of the top teams that weren't in the RLRS. Like, it's
just
those days are completely gone, essentially.
Just from you.
Go for it.
He did play in one of the Esports Management Cups last week, I think it was, and he won that alongside Alex161 from Mouse and Lorty. So again, that just shows going through now, because they've finally got it up, the competition they're playing off against, like, they were teams just as strong, for example. Like, the Dutch Bim Bam for the uploaded Shazoo, for an example. You've got the B Genius side, Ariza, Porto, and Hoops. Team MCES, you know, Econ. The What a Save Mate, Godsmiller, Flux, and Chippy. So, essentially, teams that you would expect at that same level. Shake It Up, Sebadam, Eeks, and Breezy, Motplay Store. Bloody hell, it's been a while since we saw that team. Right. Sharp, and Labyrinth. So essentially, it does just come down to this. Ocelon was not the problem if he's coming out and beating good bubble scene teams with guys that have great quality. Hopefully, they stick together, because that could be something that becomes interesting, because I have not seen Lorty enough. He is a player that has been around for so long and should have got great stuff, but he subbed way too often. That's the problem. If you become a player that subs, you don't actually go far, because you just get stuck in that cycle.
Yeah, well, obviously Method are up the creek at the moment. They've got a lot of work that needs to be done, a lot of adjustment that needs to have, obviously, over the course of the next couple seasons. It seems like it's too unrecoverable for the next season. But yeah, like, you know, I think we're kind of in agreement in that particular regard. So the teams made it through on the open qualifier side of things. It's Shazoo, Bim Bam Gamers, 2Bim, 1Bam, and ARG. Actually, quite a lot of reputable players. The old what's it? XMCon side. I think it was the Bim Bam Gamers or something like that. No, not the Bim Bam Gamers. Dutch Bim Bam.
Yep.
You know, those guys are playing in this tournament among different names. They have officially split up, unfortunately. But they had a great run. They had a couple of great runs, obviously. I think for the most part between those four teams, they are the expected results. So I don't want to focus too hard on the
Can I just say though, the one thing I did love is that Bim Bam Gamers and 2Bim 1Bam both had the Dutch Bim Bam players on it, like two of them, Foe and Justice, who had their fallen out. And I just find it funny that these players cannot give up the name Bim Bam. They love it way too much. It's weird.
I think the community as a whole just
get
loves
creative.
It, so.
Let's just get creative with new
Well,
names.
let's see if they can get creative later on down the line when they separate into their new teams. But of course, those are the four teams that made it through the qualifiers. They took on Veloce, Triple Trouble, Complexity, and the Bricks. Obviously, with several stand-ins, Tylactor obviously being in there for the Triple Trouble side, had a pretty decent performance. And iGnite, who was in for Veloce this time before they brought in Casio on a permanent basis. And the bracket is as follows. In the quarterfinals, Veloce beat out Shizou 3-0. The Bricks beat out ARG 3-1. Triple Trouble beat out 2Bim 1Bam at 3-1. And Complexity lost to the Bim Bam Gamers at 3-2. In the semi-finals, the Bricks beat Triple Trouble in a 4-3 extravaganza of a matchup. And the Bim Bam Gamers took on Veloce, where they also won 4-2. In the finals, it was the Bricks that took on the Bim Bam Gamers for that grand final placement. And in the end, they were the expected victors. They took the victory above them at 4-1 on the board. Let's start with, I think, the Bricks. I mean, the main storyline is going to be the Bim Bam side, I think. But so that's why I want to talk about the Bricks first, because they were expected victors. We did expect to see them in the grand finals alongside Complexity. Obviously, that didn't quite work out, but more details on that soon. But this team has just looked more and more scary every time we've seen them. You know, even though the caliber of talent wasn't quite there, the Triple Trouble side put up a pretty decent fight, and they still looked impressive for that. They still looked impressive with the Bim Bam Gamers, how easily they mop things up. Like, the Bricks are looking like a really big contender, which, seeing what they've gone through on Valencia, seeing how they've come up now in the online space, it makes me more than excited for their future LAN performances, especially for Beyond the Summit.
The only thing I can say against that was the Bricks Triple Trouble game, because that was one where both teams just did not seem to care, and that was a steaming pile of shit, that game there. I have never seen pro players look like absolute scrubs before. And then on the contrast, naturally, because Bricks played really well against ARG, and then played really well against Bim Bam Gamers. So that was just a one-off secluded case, and I don't know what was going on that. In that scenario, but it was a weird one. That's the only say, if you were to go back through the VOD or to watch it, just skip out that one. Just don't bother. Just leave it. It's a waste of time. It went the whole way to 7, and we have no freaking idea why.
Yeah, pretty much. So let's talk about Bim Bam Gamers next, because, yes, they were in the finals. But I think the most interesting thing about this team is that they literally had every single tough hurdle thrown at them, and they still were able to make it to the final stage. We were watching the results back in the Rival Esports office, and we saw how the results came in, and we were just like constantly watching the API, occasionally refreshing to see how the game scores went. And there was like, okay, Bim Bam Gamers, Complexity. Let's see how this probably should end up being in Complexity 3-0. Then Bim Bam Gamers took took that second game. It was like, okay, they got one, but now it should be Complexity all the way. And then they went to game 5. It was like, okay, hold the phone. Will it really happen? Is it gonna? Oh fuck! Oh shit! Oh no, Complexity are out. Like, we were shocked.
3 overtimes in that series as well.
Yep.
Just, damn.
Yep. So, we were constantly like keeping our eyes on that one. And we were just like, there's no fucking way. There was no fucking way that Complexity will lose to Bim Bam Gamers. And then it was like, as things went on, it looked more and more confident from the Bim Bam side. And do you know what? It persevered. They took on Veloce next, and we thought to ourselves, okay, Complexity is a fluke. We have seen them tilt a couple times. We have known that this team mentality hasn't always been a great area. We have seen them trip up a couple times, but this should be it, right? This should be Bim Bam Gamers falling to the Veloce side, and we were watching that one. I believe that we were casting it, Bacon, if I recall correctly. And
we were casting.
We were actually. I'm just taking a look at the VOD right now, and that one was fucking surprising beyond belief, because I don't think we went into that one expecting it to be the Bim Bam Gamers, and that's exactly what ended up happening. They were traded games back and forth until they were 2-2, and then Bim Bam Gamers took it over at 4-2 overall. A very good series, I might add. And that led them to their path against the Bricks. And I think we found one of those mixed teams, the diamond in the rough, the sort of like the Luckett sort of side that just come in and said, right, let's see how things go for this tournament. And they've actually found something kind of magical. Whether or not that will be repeated, whether or not it was a fluke, whether or not it's just a flash in the pan, we don't know. We can't know until we see more tournaments going forward. But this was a very impressive run regardless, Bacon. Just in isolation.
Yeah, I said it through and through. This is the best I've seen Godsmiller play in over a year. Yep. He's finally got a roster that works. And Nolly, we always know he's another one like, say, Ixo and that, where he's going to be the next special player coming through. Probably not at the same time we thought as Ixo, but this performance was nuts. So we'll see where that goes there. And though of the Dutch Bim Bam roster, you've known them for a while, and that Dutch Bim Bam team as it stood was just on a frustrating decline. So a new place just shows that he can refresh himself. So this is a team which I hope two things from, Jay. One is a new team name, because I'm bored with Bim Bam being every single team name. So I want them to become, I don't know, whatever new team name they come up with. Let's hope it's creative and something like. One thing I love about other esports is when they do have these bubble scene teams or ones that just emerge, they come up with something that just say is ridiculous. Like in Overwatch, I absolutely love the fucking Bazooka Puppies. Like that was just a Brazilian name to come out with. But here, this is a team that should just stick together and keep improving as time goes on, because you got to think we're just like, this is going live on the 1st of August. I would expect by the end of this month, we'll hear about the play-ins, and the sign-ups will be open for them by the end of the month based on, Rocket League history.
Yeah, I can see that being a thing as well. Obviously, in the interim, there's very little competition. I noticed Talacto is also in the chat right now. He's actually said that they're going to be playing with Justice instead of Godsmiller for the next week, which I'm not sure if that's for scrims or whether there's a tournament going on that I'm not aware of. I don't think the Rising Star stuff is happening that soon.
Wait, Though and Justice fell out and then they've come back together, what? I don't understand that, Ty. Also, since you're here, actually, can you actually explain what the fuck was going on in that Bricks Triple Trouble series? Because that was just no. What were you all just memeing and I don't know, listening to Epic Sax Man and just not actually paying attention to the game at all? You wanted it to go the whole way to 7 just to annoy everyone at home. What was the scenario there? As Jay, we break down the Bim Bam Gamers and Bricks series.
Well, he says it's a reasonable, normal series with a couple of weird goals, but I don't know, man.
Boring as fuck.
In fairness, I was actually away from my PC for a good 4 or 5 of those games or so I don't really know what was going on. Where were we? I've completely lost my train of thought. Fucking Bim Bam Gamers. I'm not sure. Again, we'll see. We'll see what happens with it. Again, there's very little going on in the next couple of weeks, especially in Europe as of right now. The only thing that's really happening is the Summer Open for North America. Other than that, Europe has got very little going on with its own right. We have the AS Monaco show match essentially, which is just a show match, and that's about it. That's it. That's literally it. That's all we fucking got. We've got the.
Actually the Rocket Baguette Rising Stars coming up, but. We can't say much about that because we've got that through inside sources, so we're not even on that. But again,
you might have information. I don't even know what the dates are yet.
Yeah. So I know what the dates are, but where it's not been officially announced, I'm not going to do that to the Baguettes. So I'm going to keep myself quiet on that because this is going to be a project. And, of course, where it involves a lot of different regions, I want to support this the best. And I don't want to spoil anything ahead of them. So I'm just going to keep us quiet on that and just tell everyone, this should be coming relatively soon, like the announcements, because they've already said announced soon on their graphic. So just keep an eye to that. It's going to be awesome and quite cool.
Yeah, well... We will keep our eyes on that one, if that's much is for certain. Again, that will be a very interesting project when it rolls around, so you do want to keep your eyes and keep your teams in check because it will be a fun little bubble scene opportunity for a lot of the bubble scene players and teams, especially this one, which has proven a lot of potential, I think, Bacon, more than anything else. You're going, about something. Have you seen something?
I just thought, for one last thing, because we've been asked to... go along and all of that. For guys in the UK, with a little bit of a heads up, we've got Insomnia 65 coming up, don't we, Jay? And we're both going to be there.
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, I mean, you've got your own like official, unofficial sort of invitation. I still am waiting on mine, so I'm not sure if I'll be there for the BYOC.
I got the email last night for the BYOC.
I've still not received my email yet, so I'm gonna have to poke people up in the behind the scenes, see what's going on. As for that though, we're definitely gonna be there at least for one day for the Belong Arena Clash. So that much is certainly gonna be something coming up later on this month. But that's certainly a grassroots thing for everyone who's outside of the UK. You probably don't give a shit. You should though, because Insomnia has a great framework that we could use for the sake of the UK esports and potentially European esports, especially in the case of Rocket League, where it is a much smaller product than something like the other games that go on there, like Counter-Strike and Overwatch and League of Legends, etc.
Yeah, so just if you're there, just make sure to give us a wave. Actually, try and shout us down and have a little talk.
Not all
It'd be
working,
awesome
by
to
the
see.
way. So
yeah. If we're up there casting, maybe not. But we'd love to see as many people down there as possible and have a good bit of fun.
fuck you, Tractor. Right. I think we've basically summed up everything this week here, Bacon.
Yep.
We have gone through a lot of the drama, a lot of the roster moves, a lot of the results, obviously. There is no tournaments coming up in the next couple of weeks, so it mostly will just be like roster rumors and roster news that comes out over the course between now and next episode. Hopefully we'll have it earlier in the week, because we did promise Monday and Wednesday, and we just haven't been sticking to that at all for the past month.
I mean, there are tournaments going on, but they're little ones we don't really talk about, like the ESL Spain stuff going on. We don't really, because we're not educated enough, we don't ever talk about that naturally. I'm trying to keep my eye open. Naturally, you've got the Brawl going on next week. Lawler's thing, that'll be EU next week, but otherwise, yeah, it's again another little bit of a quiet time going on.
Yeah.
Actually, there is one, there's the Game Force Masters. I think they've got playoffs or something coming up. So it's an odd scenario. I haven't been keeping up with that. It's like a Benelux region thing. I think they've got a qualifier coming up, and they've already got a couple of teams through. But I digress.
Well, we'll see how things go down for next week. As for that, though, we have got the next major tournament, the Rocket League Summit, coming up on the 16th through the 18th of August. So that's one thing we're going to be keeping our eyes on and doing some build-up information about that. Again, news should be announced, the final team that should be replaced in the Triple Treble side that's coming up over the next couple of weeks. Till that point, though, we're just going to cover the rosters, going to cover the rumors, cover the news, and, of course, the mailbag. So, again, if you do want to see a podcast next week, we can use those mailbag questions. Make sure you hit up in the Discord links and answer our questions. Again, that's in the show notes and video description of the very single version of the podcast, alongside ! Discord in the Twitch chat right now. If you are not already involved, join our community and get involved in the discussion, get involved in the mailbag, get involved in the podcast. Of course, this podcast is also available on basically everywhere right now. Like, doesn't matter where you want to go.
Just whatever you're on
YouTube.
Just search RLAfterShock. Do it
Pretty
right
much,
now.
yes.
There you go.
On YouTube, on Spotify, on iTunes, on Google Podcasts, on TuneIn, on everywhere. You go to anchor.fm/RLAfterShock for a full list of all of the favourite platforms, or you can request your favourite way to listen.
There we go.
There we go. Easy piece of piss. Just as I was doing that whole thing, Bacon managed to find the podcast very, very easy. So if he can do it, you can most certainly do it. Bacon's an idiot. Oh, fuck you, Badge.
It's Apple Podcasts now. Like, again, I never use
iTunes,
Apple stuff.
Right? It's iTunes, so fuck you. I don't care. It's always been known as it's always been known as iTunes. So yeah, anchor.fm/RLAfterShock. Make sure you keep involved with everything like that. And that's going to do it for this week. Bacon, any final words?
As an example, if you're on Windows, down the search bar, the Cortana search shit down the bottom left, put it in there. The first thing up is Anchor FM. Straight up. So easy peasy. You have no excuse. And of course, just download it to your phone or listen off your phone. Boom. There you go. Straight to, like, on your way to work in the mornings or on the way to school. Just pop that in, listen to it over, 1 or 2 days. Just stop us midway. Don't worry.
Yeah, it's fine. Don't worry. Anyways, that's going to be it for us here. Fucking trash. I wish you could hear this at home. This
Block out the shouting on the tube with Jay shouting.
Yeah, exactly. Right, we're going to end off for another week. Of course, we're going to stop the voices in our heads from talking to us and go ahead and get out of here. I'm the Eternal Jay, and joining me for this one has been Digital Bacon. Any final words before we head off for another week, Bacon?
No, just really that I'm excited. I've got a weekend off for once, Jay. Like, I can finally watch the Grand Prix live. I'm happy for that because we're the Hungarian ring this weekend.
I've got the weekend off as well, actually, so I'm just going to take that chance to try and get through my 100% completion of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which
I've been playing Persona 5 recently, and it's fucking good.
Mate, I can't even comprehend the challenge I've taken. I'm only 10% through, and I've been playing for about 30 hours. So I'm just Breath of the Wild.
You're slow.
It's a massive game. Anyways, that's going to be it from us here at RLAfterShock. Hopefully we'll see you back next week with even more of the news, results, and, of course, the roster moves. And again, if you want to contribute to the podcast, then that would be much appreciated at the course of this at this very quiet sort of week that's coming up on us. Till then, though, take care, and we will see you very soon.